It boggles my mind how we lost gamers to the right. Capitalism is the biggest cause of the decline of gaming. Microtransactions, gambling addiction, loot crates, pay to win, selling games in price meal snippets, charging full price for flawed garbage that will get fixed later. It won't, by the way. Relying on the community to fix their shit for free. Looking at modders in Bethesda and World of Warcraft's modders as well. Monopolistic growth, removing competition and thus reducing quality and innovation. Like gaming as a microcosm of the absolute failures of capitalism. Everything wrong with capitalism shows up in the gaming world. And all gamers think, look how feminism and diversity is ruining my video games. So, would this person consider China capitalist? That's what I wonder. Because wasn't Genshin Impact developed in China? I'm pretty sure it was. Yeah, it was made in China. I think that there are a lot of people that try to scapegoat, capitalism or something with America as like being the real problem. But the reality is that everywhere in the world has these bad problems and has... The fundamental problem here is not capitalism, it's greed. And greed can happen in any culture, in any society. Back in the day, there were monarchies that greed was the reason why they had the fucking French Revolution. I think that a lot of times that people use this, like, what do these people, a lot of times whenever these people are talking about like something that's like capitalistic or not, many times they don't really define what they mean by that. Because I am not a, I would say I am a capitalism enjoyer. I think that this is generally a good thing. It's provided more positives than negatives, but of course everything has some negatives. I think so too. Where did he say America? I mean, are we going to be disingenuous and assume that that's not what he meant? I mean, of course this is what he meant. He's clearly talking about this in the context of America, right? I mean, let's be honest. And greed is good. Well, I think that people are just going to be greedy in general because that's what people do. People are trained, they've evolved for millions of years to be greedy. I don't think so. You think that I'm not? Okay, China's Omega capitalist. Well, like, what do you think this person wants to see happen? Now, I think that's really what the question is in my mind. That this person wants to see something happen that is like not really realistic regulations. Regulations on what? Like making video games that are like not like full price, or like making something that's boring, like it's against the law to make a remake of a video game or something like that. Like what are you really trying to get at here? Yeah, he's just mad, he has no ideas. Yeah, I mean, I think everybody can identify microtransaction, loot crates, pay to win, selling games, you know, like partially selling full price later and then saying they'll fix it later. Like everybody can agree on this paragraph. All of these things are bad things. Every single thing that he says here is totally something that people don't like. But there are a lot of cases in just the world where the solution to every problem is not government intervention. Sometimes it is just make a better product and the market will choose the better product. And I think that happens all the time. I think a good example of that happening was back whenever the Xbox One tried to make it to where you had to have the Xbox connected to the internet, and you had to, you know, like you couldn't resell games, and it always had to have the webcam on, and nobody liked it. But then Sony came in and they said the PS4 isn't going to have any of this stuff, and the free market chose PS4 because they didn't want that, and then Xbox had to change what they did. So I think there's a lot of examples of the free market actually improving the customer experience as well, and I think it's probably the best way for a customer experience to be improved is to give people the purchasing power and the power to choose of what they do when they don't want to spend money on. Now, obviously, there are some limits to that, like gambling and things like that, but I think in a general sense, it has been something that's improved people's experience playing video games, and it has generally made video games better. I think that there's a very big survivorship bias that people have for like games back in the day on how good they were, because you're thinking about like the same probably 16 to 20 Nintendo 64 games, but there were probably over 200 Nintendo 64 games that came out. Nobody's ever thinking about the rest of those because they were garbage. There's always been most of the games being garbage. They've always been awful, and I don't think this is something that's really because of capitalism or anything like that. And I think in a big way, capitalism might be a big reason why people are able to go out and make their own game and make money on themselves. So I think it's very similar. It's very silly. I think having a free market where the individual can choose what they buy and sell, and people can put what they want on a marketplace is a positive thing. And I think that it's been a very big positive for gaming in general. And that's the way that I see it. Arcade games pay to win. You never know because you were kids back then. Well, it's not pay to win. It's just that you lose and you can pay to keep playing. So it's a little bit different, but sure. And is everything free in a monopolize? I have no idea. But like all I'm saying is I think people just don't want to have this stuff either. But there are a lot of things, like as I said, gambling in video games and the loot boxes stuff. Yes, I think it should be regulated. All the other stuff, a lot of the other stuff, this is not something that can be regulated. You don't want to have the government try to get in there and try to make rules for every single little type of video game that you can make.